So we're just waiting for Walter,
I think so, yeah.
and Kim can
Yeah,
Probably technically.
pinch it if he doesn't.
Sandra is not here at the moment, just in case.
All right, it is 10 o'clock and we do have a quorum.
Excellent. Welcome everyone to a meeting of the Pioneer Valley Metropolitan Planning Organization. I'm David Muller. I represent Secretary Monica Tibbetts-Nutt here. This meeting is being held virtually as allowed by HB 85, an act making appropriations for fiscal year 2023, which among other things extends the expiration of the provisions pertaining to the open meeting law to March 31st, 2025. Participants will be muted upon entrance into the Zoom meeting. Participants wishing to speak should click participants icon on the lower toolbar and then click raise hand in the dialog box to notify the chair. Telephone participants should press *9 to indicate that they wish to speak. Please wait for the chairman to call on you. *6 mutes your phone for call-in only. Use chat to ask questions to the entire MPO. Direct meeting questions to the co-host PVC staff. This meeting is being recorded for purposes of creating minutes. Please raise your hand now to notify the chair if you are also recording this meeting. Please call the roll.
Dave Moeller,
I am here.
Mark Moore,
Mark Moore representing Administrator Jonathan Gulliver.
Walter Gahn,
Present, representing Pioneer Valley Planning Commission.
Doug Slaughter,
I'm here and I'm representing the PVTA as the advisory board.
Mayor Garcia,
Here, City of Holyoke.
Mayor Chiara,
Here, City of Northampton.
Mark Gold.
Here representing Subregion 5.
Barber from FHWA.
Or-
Are there any FTA or FHWA representatives here?
Joshua Barber
Yes,
here
hi.
with Federal Highway Administration.
Thank you, Joshua, and I heard
Kirsty.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Kirsty Tirandazzi here with FTA Region 1.
thank you. Okay, Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the minutes of October 22nd, 2024. Can I get a motion and a second to approve the minutes? And please state
Sure,
your
so
name for the
moved.
record.
Yep, so moved, Walter Gunn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Mark Gold, Long Meadow.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Any comments, changes, questions, or suggestions? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
David Moeller,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Walter Gahn,
Yes,
Doug Slaughter,
Yes,
Mayor Garcia,
Yes,
Mayor Chiara,
Yes.
Mark Gold.
Yes.
Okay, minutes are approved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment at this time? If so, please raise your hand. I don't see anyone, so if you'd like to comment during the meeting, raise your hand and we'll try to call on you. Next item is Amendment 1, approval of Amendment number 1 to the FF 2025 TIP.
Okay, thank you. All right, so at our last meeting of the MPO, we went over a series of adjustments. Those involve changes to project descriptions, changing the funding sources, changing the nomenclature. Also at that meeting, we discussed 3 specific cost increases that needed an actual amendment because of the size of the cost increase. So on this page that you see before you are the 3 projects with those specific cost increases to them. And what I do want to highlight in red, or what is highlighted in red, is a comment received from MassDOT. And basically, it's just clarifying funding source change for a portion of the cost increase. So under the West Springfield Chicopee project number 1 here, you'll see that red highlight just clarifying how the funding is going to be parsed out. That wasn't specified when we released the amendment. So again, just as a quick reminder, the West Springfield Chicopee Pavement and Bridge Preservation Project experienced an increase from $5.76 million to just over $9 million. The Agawam roadway resurfacing, bridge deck resurfacing and related work on 57 increased from $8.625 million to $13.315 million. And then the Hadley Bridge project on Bay Road increased from 5.7 million to $7.2 million. So this was released by the MPO. Again, we received the one comment that will be addressed in the final document. And so if there are no additional questions or comments, we're looking for the MPO to endorse this amendment so these projects can advance.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Yeah, I just want to make sure. So, Walter speaking, transportation section, we're good with the MassDOT comments, and that is correct, accurate information for funding source?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? You have your hand up, Mark?
Yes, I do. I continue to be concerned that the funds, these increases, and they're all substantial increases, haven't gone through the vetting process that even the base funding undergoes. It's just, well, we're in this. I mean, from 5.7 to 9.3 million, that's not an increase. That's just a redo of the project. And at what point do these really need to be more closely looked at than saying, well, it is what it is. Prices are going up.
So Mark, I'll address part of that, and I should have been a little more clear. So with the exception of the Hadley project, the other two do include additional work. So under the adjustments, there was a clarification. They're including additional bridge work and other items. So obviously there is a problem with costs continue to increase. However, these portions of these cost increases are a direct result of identifying, more specifics about projects and the actual work involved in it. So I do understand where you're going with that, and we do acknowledge that that is an issue. But there are some specific reasons that these projects are going up. The Hadley project, and I touched on this last meeting, and I should have touched on it again. This project got bumped out of a previous year because of another project close to this area in Hadley, and this project increase was a direct result of just waiting around, and as you indicated, project costs are continuing to rise, and so that one was a result of those issues. I should have clarified a little better. I hope that answers part of it, but I do understand where you're going with that.
So just as a follow-up, what's the incentive for project designers or developers to have all the elements in the project when it's initially approved? It seems to me the incentive is I'll lowball it, get it approved, and then come back and add in all these things that need to be done, or we'll identify it. I'm not going to hold up this whole group over this. I'm going to vote against it because I think the process that allows for project increases to go through like this without the same level of scrutiny that we undertook for the initial project is wrong. So I'm not particularly looking for an answer. I'm just more or less making that statement.
Okay.
Dave?
Yes.
Walter speaking. I'm sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand. I haven't done
That's
it
okay.
since grade school, and I can't find it on my screen. But also to address Mark here, don't forget, we did have some changes to state regulations on road work done last spring. So that's the one I caught. And so I think it's not people low bidding. I think that there's been project specifications change, which has also required additional funding. And these are new regulations put in. I believe it was back in March somewhere. I don't hold me to the dates, but it was earlier this year. And I believe this is what had a lot of impact on a lot of the projects we're seeing. And I think you won't see this kind of inflationary strangeness. You're just going to see projects now in the multi-millions. That's all going forward.
Thanks, Walter.
Any other comments or questions for staff? Seeing none, can I get a motion and a second to approve this amendment as presented today? Please state your name for the record.
I'll move it.
Thank you. Walter moves it. Is there a second?
I'll second. Doug Slaughter.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Please call the roll.
David Moeller,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Walter Gunn,
Yes.
Doug Slaughter,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia,
No.
Mayor Chiara,
Yes.
Mark Gold, excuse me.
No.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we have consensus.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is amendment number 2.
Okay, thank you. So this is more or less a procedural item. Gary Rue has presented on the SS4A grants applications, how they've been advancing over the last couple months. So as we have explained in the past, there are 4 grants for our region that have been approved. We've mostly discussed the one that PVPC has received for $1.25 million. Additionally, there was a $400,000 grant that Chicopee received, a just under $200,000 grant that Holyoke received, and the $250,000 grant that Westfield received. So these have all been advancing through the process. They're at the time now where they need to show up in our federal 3C documents in order for the money to be accessed by the municipalities. So again, these grants have all been awarded. They've been all going through the process, and this is just the kind of the last step before the monies can be made available. So what we're asking to do today is to release this amendment to include these 4 items in the Transportation Improvement Program for the 21-day public review period. Our proposal is that if we don't receive any specific comments that would jeopardize any of these 4 advancing, that the MPO issues a conditional approval, so we don't need to necessarily meet in December. So the approval would say that if comments aren't received, in the negative to these projects, the MPO acknowledges that they can advance, and we'll come back in January just as a reminder that this process happened. So we want it to be released with a conditional approval pending comments. I hope I kind of said that clearly. We'll leave it at that. So anyways, we're looking for a recommendation today.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
I'm sorry, are we looking for an endorsement on a condition that there are no comments received? Or are you looking for a recommendation to put this out for public hearing?
So these grants, Walter, have already been awarded, and so for lack of a better term, this is just a bookkeeping. We're just acknowledging that we have received this money. So it's a way for anyone to find out that these 4 grants were awarded by looking at the tip. Previously, we hadn't included these in the tip, and it's just a new process.
Right, but I think, Walter, to answer your question, we're gonna do what's on the screen. We're gonna release it for a 21-day public review process.
Okay.
But we're also gonna notify the public that if we get no negative comments, the amendment will be deemed approved. If we get negative comments, we'll come back in December and address them at that time and decide whether to approve, amend, or adopt, or not adopt.
Well, Dave, sounds like you just made the motion.
So any other questions?
If you require me, I will make that motion on David's text for the minutes, that we will move this out for 21-day public review, and the public will be notified that there will be a conditional approval if there's no negative comments after that 21-day period.
Thank you, Walter. Is there a second?
Second, Doug Slaughter.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Please call the roll.
David Moeller,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Walter Gunn,
Yes.
Doug Slaughter,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor McCabe,
Might have stepped off again.
Mayor Chiara,
Yes.
Mark Gold.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we have
Thank you.
unanimity.
Next item on the agenda is the Title VI update for the MPO.
That's gonna be Jeff McCullough.
Whenever you're ready, Jeff.
Jeff, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
So,
He's here.
Okay, how's this?
Now
Thank you,
we can
Mr.
both see
Chair.
and hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever you're ready, Jeff.
Thank you. Each year, the Pioneer Valley MPO documents its activities related to Title VI and related executive orders for the MassDOT as a subrecipient. Andy, next slide. This program includes a number of components that you see on a regular basis that are incorporated into other related documents. We also track and investigate any Title VI complaints. There have been no complaints over the last year, nothing outstanding or pending. We also work with MassDOT on this annual program to tweaks and make special considerations in how we do our work. This year, we added a lot of training for staff, and we also worked on updating the Title VI complaint procedures and added extra languages. The next slide. As part of the work program tasks, we look at how our program tasks are distributed across the region. Next slide. I'm sorry. And then we also, with the TIP, you're familiar, we take all your TIP projects and we distribute those based on Title VI populations, low income minority populations, and we look at how those projects are distributed. Next slide. And then with that data, we look at, do a financial analysis to look at, make sure we have an equitable distribution of those funds throughout the region, and to complete that analysis. Next slide. And then we also do look at the demographics of our population, and we try to find out how things are changing, especially related to languages. I know in our reports this year, we made an extra effort to use the MassDOT Engage tool to find out what languages might be present in the communities where we were doing project reports and studies, and made sure that our meeting materials were appropriate for that audience. And then finally, next slide, Andy. Everything that we do, we try to document on our new Title VI website for the MPO. So all this information is available and accessible there. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions for Jeff? Seeing none. Is this just an update? I think it was, right?
This is a required update, so it's just me to make sure it's been documented that yes, that we were here.
Thank you, Jeff, very much.
Thank you.
Chair, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
We will be coming back to the MPO. Typically, we do this in the spring at a spring MPO meeting where we do our self-certification documents. So the plan is we will be submitting our update to Mass DOT as required by the end of the calendar year. But we'll be asking the MPO to act on this / endorse it once we've gotten comments back from Mass DOT and had a chance to respond to them. But we're going to do it as part of our self-certification process moving forward, where we're talking about all of our environmental justice and Title VI activities. And that always occurs in the spring of the calendar year.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you again, Jeff. Next item on the agenda is review and discussion. Oh, I'm sorry. No, presentation on the economic impact of Pioneer Valley Planning Commission.
So that's going to be Executive Director Kim Robinson.
Whenever you're ready, Kim.
All right. Thanks so much. Good morning, everybody. And thanks for having me here. Wanted to share the results of an economic impact analysis that we recently had done by the Donahue Institute with UMass. Next slide. So just a quick refresher, we might have some new folks on the call as well. Who is the PVPC? So we're the regional planning agency for Hampden and Hampshire counties. We've got 13 RPAs across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We were created by the state legislature in 1963, and we have 43 communities in those two counties that we work with to support them with funding and technical assistance in a variety of projects. Next slide. So what does the PVPC do? Well, very quickly, we do a lot. This is a sampling of some of the work that we do, including we've got housing rehabilitation. We do some domestic violence prevention work. We've got public infrastructure replacement and upgrades work. We work with our communities around shared municipal services. We do brownfields planning and economic development planning. You are very familiar with the work that the transportation section does, including the Pioneer Valley Safety Compass. We provide pavement management services. And we also play a large role with the Connecticut River in terms of staffing the cleanup committee and helping to bring in funding for combined sewer overflow. I could go on, but nobody wants me to do that. So we'll move on to the next slide. So let's get right to the results. Every single one of our communities pays an assessment based on their population. This past year, our assessments for the 43 communities came in at a total of approximately $114,500. What the Donahue Institute found is that for every dollar that a member community pays in assessments, $5,375 is generated in economic activity in our region, which is obviously a really healthy multiplier. For each dollar that PVPC brings in terms of grants and awards, $83 of economic activity is generated in our region. Overall, on a yearly basis, approximately a value of $629 million is generated, and we support in some fashion approximately 2,200 additional jobs. Now, I will say those are, they might be half a job or a quarter of a job. This 2,200 together is kind of a calculation of all of those, but it could look like we have more employees in the region, so we need an additional nurse, things like that. And to put that into some context, PVPC right now has approximately 48 employees, and in the last fiscal year, we accomplished 156 projects. I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Kim. Questions for Kim? I would just like to note that none of this surprises me, right? I mean, I think everybody on this MPO thinks staff, not just the transportation staff, of course, but everybody, I think, everybody understands the value of the planning commission, but this is always good to be refreshed. Any other questions? Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Protect Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Recently, staff at the Planning Commission received a solicitation from Mass DOT, Office of Transportation Planning, with the purpose of asking for projects that could be incorporated into the statewide resilience improvement plan. And that would allow a community to apply for funding under the federal Protect Grant. This grant is currently accepting applications, and it's for the purpose of strengthening the surface transportation system to be more resilient to national hazards, including climate change, sea level rise, flooding, heat waves, extreme weather events, and other natural disasters. One of the requirements as part of this grant, if you're applying for implementation money, is to be part of a adopted resilience improvement plan, or RIP for short, RIP. The application is, there's a deadline in this round for February of 2025, and then there's a subsequent round in 2026. We'll go to the next slide. So in light of this solicitation, we just wanted to give the MPO a quick overview of the strategy we intend to employ for this. So during the first week of December, our staff will send out a solicitation to all of our member communities, and we will also use work that we've previously done on things such as municipal vulnerability planning process to identify projects that we can consider as part of a list to submit to Mass DOT. We'll use the Joint Transportation Committee to assist in this process, and our intention is to come up with a regional ranking procedure where we can identify that in fact the project is eligible and is in fact meeting the goals that were set forth in Mass DOT's statewide plan. We'll be sending that solicitation out the first week of December. We'll address this at the December JTC meeting, and then we'll address it again at the January JTC meeting, at which point we expect to have a prioritized list to send out to Mass DOT. And then what we'll be doing is bringing that list in front of the MPO to approve at their January meeting. So more information to come, but it's a potential opportunity to have your project approved and amended into Mass DOT's plan, that you'd be able to apply for this funding category before the February deadline. I know this was a really quick overview, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Seeing none. Next item is an update on a project in Northampton, 609-286.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in here to start quickly, and then we'll pass it off. So just as a reminder to the MPO, in the current federal fiscal year 2025, which started on October 1st, we have 3 projects that the MPO approved for funding with our regional discretionary funds. And those projects are 608-881 Long Meadow Springfield resurfacing and intersection improvements on Long Meadow Street and Converse Street. That project currently has an add date of May 3rd. And then we have the Holyoke resurfacing and related work on Cabot Street and Race Street. That project currently has an add date of 6/28, or so June 28th of 2025. And then the Northampton project, which you're going to learn a little more about here in just a second, currently has an add date of middle of August. So all these projects need to be advertised by the end of federal fiscal year 2025, which ends on September 30th. So what we're going to do is we're going to get an update on Northampton today, and we anticipate bringing in the other municipalities at a early calendar year 25 MPO meeting to provide updates as well. We want to ensure these projects are advancing in their design process and through all the processes set forth by MassDOT to ensure that the projects are advertised so we don't lose the money. With that, I'll hand it over to Stephanie from Tool Design, and she's put together a presentation.
Thank you. Good morning. Stephanie Wire, I'm a landscape architect and the project manager for this project at Tool Design. Prime consultant, we also work with BSC Group for drainage and right-of-way. So we can go to the next slide.
I'm sorry, Stephanie, I want to interrupt for 1 second here. I should have asked the mayor of Northampton if she wanted to say anything before we advance through this presentation.
Thank you. I was just going to introduce Stephanie and say that she has a presentation, and I'm really glad that she's here to talk about this project, which we are really looking forward to. But thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
So as a recap, this is the reconstruction of Main Street in downtown Northampton from building face to building face. So full reconstruction of the roadway and sidewalks. The project extends approximately 0.4 miles from west of the intersection of Elm and West Streets with Main Street, and then east under the railroad and trail bridges to the intersection with Main with Market and Holly Streets. And all of the intersections that are shown with yellow dots, those are all of the intersections within the project. And then you see some with signals in them. All of those are part of the project reconstruction as well. The next slide. So the purpose of the project really started with safety. This was a MassDOT identified high crash location. There are a number of different safety issues, confusion over travel lanes. The roadway is currently very wide in some areas. And there's not enough delineation of, is it 2 lanes, is it 1 lane? So people switching back and forth. That of course brings unsafe and wide crosswalks. There's a general lack of accessibility, curb ramps that do not meet ADA or now ProWag, and then no dedicated space for cyclists. There are no bike lanes on Main Street now. though some do extend up Elm Street. Other considerations behind the purpose of the project are just accessibility and waiting for public transit. So there's some major PVTA and FTA bus stops within Main Street, attracting business investment and providing space that supports businesses along Main Street is another aspect. There's no designated space for loading. Loading happens from often the middle of the street today. And then we're looking, at the planting areas for trees. Those were identified across the board as not sufficient, fairly small tree boxes. And there is a need for a number of subsurface utility improvements, including, of course, drainage would accompany a reconstruction project, but the city is taking on a water and sewer upgrade as well to increase their capacity for storms. And then so the real three goals are to improve safety and access for all, promote a vibrant and attractive downtown, and create a functional, enduring, and sustainable streetscape. And so the big design things here are really narrowing the roadway to one travel lane in each direction, vastly increasing sidewalk space. Part of the parking is reconfigured to parallel to accompany this, and we're providing dedicated space for cyclists, and then providing a very nice programmed amenity zone with updated lighting that'll fully light the crosswalks and light the streetscape as well, and then provide a much better subsurface area for trees, plus all of the accompanying utility upgrades. We'll go to the status slide next. So clearly this is different than what we were just seeing here. The project schedule has just been updated, and we did coordinate with MassDOT staff and the city on this, but this is something very recent. The project, the advertising date is moving to September 13th. This is primarily to provide additional time for the right-of-way process to be completed. I'll speak to more on that in a second. We are in 100% design. I think the slide Andy showed 75%. We are actively in 100% design now, actively coordinating weekly with the city and MassDOT. We're holding weekly progress meetings where we're getting a lot of quick feedback on questions. So there's a quite large plan in place to get us to a March 28th submittal date for 100%, and that submission is planned to be as solid as possible, basically vetted before it goes in by MassDOT and the city, so that we receive as few comments as possible. Because then that will trigger, or the 100% right-of-way plan draft will go in on the same date, March 28th. And so we do expect some revisions to right-of-way plans. We'll be looking for acceptable right-of-way plan by end of April. Which then the kind of remainder of the critical path for right-of-way will be appraisals happening from May to mid-July. Carolyn, the planning director with the city, has already talked to appraisers about this timeline and about how many days we can get appraisals down to. And we think this timeline is going to work. So 60 days at a maximum is what is in the schedule now. We think we can get that probably a bit slimmer. And then we're really looking for the municipal approvals of both layout plan and then all of the right-of-way takings and easements by August 14th or mid-August that week at the very latest, to make sure that we're hitting that September 13th advertising date. So the city is already coordinating on, will this be a single meeting or separate meetings? So there's essentially a lot of working ahead and planning ahead to make sure that all of this is going to work. We do recognize it's a tighter timeline. The tip amount, it was reflected in what Andy showed, 29.7 million essentially. We do not anticipate this changing. And then just all of those surface transportation block grant funds are going to be split over 3 years, with a large chunk, I think, to the tune of 16 million or so in 2025 being released. So happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Stephanie or the mayor?
Can I ask,
Yeah,
Walter?
go ahead, Walter. Go ahead, Walter.
Just refresh my memory. So I see the cost has gone down, and I do recall we had several public comment sessions where especially business owners on this corridor were complaining about the project. I mean, has this all been, everyone been accommodated and happier now as this project moves forward?
Well,
Go ahead, Mayor.
you know, you're never going to make everybody happy. I've actually
Okay.
been, my team and I have been going business to business talking about this project. And actually, we've also created with the chamber and with the Downtown Northampton Association a what we call our Pardon Our Progress POP campaign, which is about mitigating the impact on businesses. And so we've been talking to businesses, and you know, I think the more communication we have with them, and the more we show how dedicated we are to having open lines of communication, and also to working with them to try and mitigate the impact and you know, drive business downtown as much as possible during construction. The sort of more accepting businesses have been. You know, there are some vocal folks, but I've found that the majority of the businesses are concerned. Sure, like this is a challenging thing to go through, but they're really excited about what it's going to be like at the end. So things, you know, I feel like communication has gotten a lot better with them.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? So I'd just like to note, this is a really tight timeline. And we as Stephanie said, she's worked with MassDOT. We all support this. We all believe we can make this, but it's really important that we don't miss any of our dates, particularly because the first two are during TIP development time, right? It would be really good if we could report back to the MPO in March that we got the 100% in, and then in April that we got good right-of-way plans in. So I know everybody, I know the mayor knows this. I know you know this, Stephanie. We want to be as helpful as we can. So if there's anything we can do, let us know. But really, this is really tight, and it's a lot of money dedicated in the current year. So ask us for help if you need help.
Thank you for that. We are on it, but we will certainly lean on you if we need some help.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mayor.
David.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you both. Next item on the agenda is district updates. Peter, is this you?
Yes, thank you, Dave. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so just a quick glance in the rearview mirror at 2024. The two projects advertised for reconstruction of Route 143 in Worthington and bridge preservation on 3 bridges in Cummington are in the construction phase. The Cummington project just received a notice to proceed to Northern Construction Services on November 20th. Looking in the current year in 2025, the bridge preservation project in Huntington on Route 112 over the CSX and Westfield River. The current schedule shows that Alfred Benesch and Company, the designer, will be delivering 75% design at the end of this year. And in 2026 and 27, we're kind of tracking 2 municipal projects. The first is the reconstruction of Mountain Street in Williamsburg. We are anticipating a 75% design submittal on that project, also at the end of this year on December 20th. And the second municipal project that we're looking at is the reconstruction of North Road and Damon Pond Road in Chesterfield. Although it's a 27 project, the final design and final right-of-way plans are anticipated in February of 25. The town has already conducted a town meeting to approve the right-of-way acquisition process. So we're keeping an eye on that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Any questions for the district? Seeing none. District 2.
Yes, good morning. This is Daryl from District 2. So on this
Daryl.
list here, I'm just going to go over probably the first few years. Not going to go through all of them, but with that said, we have a couple updates too on some recently advertised projects. First 601 or 608-163. This is the Wales reconstruction improvements on Munson Road to Reed Hill Road. This was advertised on September 14th. Bids were opened just recently on November 13th. The low bid received of 10.6 million by Marias Concrete Services, and we're awaiting award and NTP on that. Next we have project 610652. This is Agawam Robinson Park Elementary School, the Safe Routes to School project. This was advertised September 14th. Bids were open November 5th. It was awarded on the 14th, and the notice to proceed was issued on the 21st to Marias Concrete Services with a bid of 2.8 million. And we're just awaiting construction on that. Finally, we have Ludlow Bridge Replacement, Piney Lane over Broad Brook. Design was advertised September 7th. Bids were opened on October 22nd, and a low bid was received of 5.3 million from Tully Construction Corp. And was awarded on the 20th of November. And we're awaiting notice to proceed on that. And then into FY25 projects, we have the project 608881. This is the Long Meadow Springfield resurfacing and intersection improvements on Long Meadow Street, Route 5 and Converse Street. This was originally improved in 2017 at 5.2 million, programmed in 2019 at 6.1 million. Current TFPC, which is the amount to be programmed, which consists of bid items, police details, and construction engineering contingencies and reimbursable utilities on PINFO, is currently at 9.7 million. The design is at 100%. The review comments have been completed, and we have a PSNE submission due in December from the municipality's designer. And that's what I have on that. Next, we have project 609065. This is Holyoke resurfacing and related work on Cabot Street and Race Street. This is the Center City Connector. This was originally approved in 2018 at 5.1 million, programmed in 2022 at 5.9 million. Current TFPC on PINFO is 8.2 million. Design is at 100%. Review comments have been completed. A comment resolution was held on September 4th, and the PSNE is due on November 22nd this year. So we're waiting updates on that. And we have finally the project 609286, the updates we recently presented here. This is that Northampton Downtown Complete Streets Corridor project. And as was stated, we have a current TFPC or current tip amount at 29.6 million. 75% was received in mid-March. Review comments were completed in mid-April. And next milestone we're waiting is the 100% submission due on March 28th. And that's what I have for that. Next we have a couple in 2026 that I'll go over. South Hadley. This is project 608785, reconstruction of Main Street from the Chicopee Center City Line to Canal Street. This was originally approved in 2017 at 3 million, programmed in 22 at 6.3 million. Current TFPC on project info is 7.8 million. Design status is at 25%. Submission from 2019 and functional design review were completed on September 11th. And design justification review 4 comments were completed just recently on November 21st. And we're awaiting a revised schedule and updates from the consultant. Next is project 609061. This is the Chicopee intersection improvements at Montgomery Street, Granby Road, and McKinstry Ave. This originally was PRC approved in 2018 at 5.1 million, programmed in 2022 at 10.2 million. Current TFPC on project info is 12.3 million, and the design is at 100%. Submission was received on June 7th. Review comments were completed on September 5th. The next milestone we're awaiting is the PSNE submission, which is due on December 17th per the October 29th VHB schedule. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Daryl. Any questions for District 2? Seeing none, next item on our agenda is updates from the PVTA.
Good morning, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, Sandra.
Perfect. I was having some technical difficulties at the beginning of the meeting. Well, I just wanted to inform you that thanks to the Massachusetts legislature, the regional transit authorities most of the regional transit authorities are fare-free. PVTA went fare-free November 1st. We expect to be fare-free through June 30th. However, if there's any money leftovers, we will continue that until July and August. Ridership continues to increase. September figures show a 14% increase, October a 12% increase year over year. We also noticed an increase, a large increase in the growth of weekend service. Saturday has grown by 32% system-wide and Sundays by 36%. I don't know if you recall that in March and May, we made changes to our system. We enhanced weekend service, and we have seen the growth just reflected on the ridership figures. On the paratransit system, we are increasing by 12%, which is really good for that. And so recovery rate is at 93.5% of 2019. We have some route updates. We started service between Amherst and Greenfield. It's a coordination between PVTA and FRTA. With the assistance of the Amherst Council on Aging, we are providing shuttle service for individuals that have medical appointments and other needs in the Greenfield area. We also submitted a grant application to Mass DOT that was recently funded for service between the Northampton, East Hampton to Southwick. It's also a coordination with FRTA just to connect our two service areas and provide more direct service in the north and south between our two systems. We have ongoing construction. The phase 1 of the Cottage Street facility, PVTA largest garage, is substantially completed. That included replacing 6 chargers, electric chargers for our electric fleet, 60 kilowatt chargers with 180 kilowatt chargers that are able to charge 18 buses. So you could charge 3 buses with one of the chargers. You'd have 3 dispensers. So it's a total of 18 buses that we're able to charge at the same time. And phase 2 of that project is going to go out to bid in January, and that is expanding the facility to accommodate a paid booth and additional parking in order for us to have an additional 20 chargers. Those are going to be pantograph, so it will be 1-to-1 ratio for the buses. They'll be able to accommodate 20 buses. So for a total of 38 by the time we will be completed. And then we also have some construction at the UMass Transit facility. Within the university, we are expanding the maintenance area to allow for maintaining, to install lifts for 60-foot transit buses. We currently have 2 at that facility. We are in the process of purchasing 2 additional ones and then adding 2 more as the replacement of the fleet continues. There is a large need, and like the students like to tell us, they're packed like sardines. And so we want to make sure that we can accommodate them, since a lot of the students are leaving off campus and coming from the different communities as they are brought into the university. So we are expanding on that size fleet, especially only for the UMass. And we are in the process of purchasing transit buses for replacement fleet. Some of them are going to be electric and some of them are going to be hybrids. And that's my report. If anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Sandra. Any questions for Sandra at this time? Sandra, I just want to say again that there's a lot happening, and the PVTA is to be commended for all the hard work everybody's doing.
Thank you.
Great news about your ridership growth. Thank you so much.
Yes, we're very excited about that. I think having the fare free, it's also going to increase our ridership, but we also made some changes to the system, and we changed the frequency. And I think I mentioned it to the board the other day. We had a board meeting last week. We have a route that operates between Northampton and Springfield, and it stops at the Holyoke Mall. And when we implemented that service, it was through a grant, and we started at 60-minute headway, and we were transporting, like 7,000, 9,000 passengers. We changed that frequency with the additional funding that was allocated through the fair share money to 45 minutes, and that ridership went to 10,000. And then the last May, we made changes to that with the additional workforce and the money that was allocated to PVTA and the other RTAs, and we changed that frequency to 30 minutes. And now the ridership on that route is 16,000 passengers a month. So you can see when you make those changes, how it changes people's perception of the service. You're going as fast as a vehicle, and so that makes a big difference to our users. So we're very pleased that we're able to do something like that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Before we go on to the next item, Mayor McCabe was trying to raise his hand during the District 2 update, but his raise hand function wasn't working. So Daryl, are you ready to take some questions?
Sure.
Mayor McCabe?
Daryl, don't sound so excited. Good to see you again.
You too.
And before we go on to that, Sandra, thank you for your update. It's really good to hear that the ridership is getting it where it needs to be. And I'm going to call you later on using your public restroom. So that's a whole nother story in and of itself. Daryl, a couple of questions.
Yes.
You gave the update on the Service Star corridor at Barnes, which is chugging along as it chugs. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. I think that there's probably going to be a favorable, hopefully at the by the December 5th meeting. The question is, I've sent out a couple of emails back and forth to Mass DOT specifically on the 10 and 202 corridor, but I think that the Service Star Way at Barnes National Airport, Barnes Regional Airport taxiway and the 104th is being confused with the question that I'm trying to get answered, which is 10 and 202 corridor and the Route 202 corridor are also going to be seeing upgrades at North Road at Southampton Road, North Road at Falcon Landing, North Road at further on down by where the school system is. The question for me is, I have a multi-million-dollar business that's trying to get underway, and they're just kind of looking for a status update on those independent of the 612600 project. I know it's a different project, but when I reached out to the district, I got conflicting answers. So is there any way to clean up the response? I know that they're two different projects.
Okay, so yes, so you're right. There's several different projects on that on that corridor, as you know.
Yeah.
And right. So the 10 and 202 project, the original one, that is pretty much most of that corridor that runs, from the intersection, the exit 41 interchange all the way for a few miles north. That was set aside until we got 612-600 straightened out. But my understanding is that you're not talking about that one either. You're talking about the other smaller intersection projects. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm talking about the ones essentially north of the Southampton Road School, Daryl, and I'm only using that. I know the other people have no idea what we're talking about, but north of the Southampton Road School, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, I'll jot that down and I'll get you those updates. I'll clarify that with our operations engineer.
Okay, I think Patty's just got it. It's just a little confused on all the different projects that are going through there. So if I could get that cleaned up, that would be terrific. And
Okay,
Sandra, I promise I'll talk.
okay. Just to confirm, that's north of the what was the name of the school?
North of Southampton Road. So specifically, I'm looking for an update on the interchange Falcon Drive at Southampton Road, North Road at Southampton Road, and North Road at East Mountain Road. Those are all kind of promised within the target Falcon Landing construction redo, blah, blah, blah. Those are necessary evils. MassDOT was working with that project and, independently, obviously, on its own to try to fix those intersections.
Okay, I'll look into that, Mayor.
Appreciate it, Daryl. Thank you for everything.
You bet.
My hand is now down.
Thank you, Mayor. Next item on the agenda, I believe, is other business. Is there any other business come before the NPO at this time? So again, if we need to meet, we'll meet on December 24th or the 31st. Our plan is to cancel unless we need to meet. If there are public comments on the SS4A amendment that are negative, we'll have to meet. If anything else comes up, I assume we can let it fly until January. So hopefully everybody will have the weeks around the holiday off from the NPO. But if not, we will let you know, but our goal is not to meet. Now, having said all that, can I get a motion and a second to adjourn? And please state your name for the record when making the motion.
So moved, Walter Gunn.
Second,
Is there a second?
Slaughter.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Without objection, we are adjourned. Hope to see you in January. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Dave.
Can you go back to the? Oh, on.